Welcome, Legacy fam. We are so excited that you're here with us. Please like, comment, and subscribe down below so that we can get to know you.
Genesis chapter 50. Chapter 50. We're going to start at verse 14. It says this: After burying Jacob, Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had accompanied him to his father's burial. But now that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers became fearful. Now Joseph will show his anger and pay us back for all the wrong we did to him, they said. See, they scared now. The rabbit got the gun. It ain't fun when the rabbit got the gun. Because they were bullying him when he was a kid, but now he's that guy. He's him. And they're nervous. So they sent this message to Joseph. Before your father died, he instructed us to say to you, please forgive your brothers for the great wrong they did to you, for their sin in treating you so cruelly. They lying. Jacob didn't say none of that. They just scared. He only been dead a couple of days. They already lying on him. Let him rest in peace, man. Quit lying on this man. There's nowhere in the Bible where Jacob said that. But let's keep reading. So we, the servants of God, of your father, beg you to forgive our sin. When Joseph received the message, he broke down and wept. Tell the person next to you, it's the last week of dreams money can't buy. I don't know. That's a funeral for me. I don't know. But you can have a seat. You can have a seat. We'll see what God does in the last week. You like the person you're sitting next to? I should have told you to switch before you sat down. You should have went to the bathroom. Now you're stuck. 39 minutes stuck. If you missed last week, or maybe you missed a couple weeks and you ain't had time to catch up on YouTube, I'm going to give you a 2-minute recap of what we've been in with Dreams Money Can't Buy. So the first week, Pastor Allison taught on Genesis 37, and she had a message titled A Word to the Dreamers. And it was all about the beauty and the burden of dreams and how God will give you the big picture, but then he only hands you small pieces and you have to kind of work that out. And then the next week, Danny, he taught on Genesis 39 about distractions and about tests and temptations and how distractions will keep you longer than you meant to stay. And sometimes a distraction can cause you to abandon the dream God gave you if you're not careful. And then I came after that and I stayed in Genesis 39 and I talked about it's dark down here. And that was all about how to hold on to your dreams when it gets hard. And how the dream is sometimes in the dark moments of our life if we'll be able to see it, if we choose to see it. And then we moved to Genesis 40 and 41, and we talked about how can I help? And that was all about serving the dream of someone else. And we talked about how actually serving someone else is really not serving, it's actually sowing into your own legacy, because you never know how God will use what you've sown into someone else, and you'll be able to reap it in another way. And then last week we talked about Genesis 42 through 44, and the question was, is this a God dream? And like, how do I decipher between whether this is from God or this is just for me? And we went over the 3 questions you need to ask yourself. Like, first of all, who does it help? Who does it really help? And then next one is, what does it cost you? Like, for example, my dream was to be a basketball player. I wanted to play professionally. I had opportunity to go play in Canada, but my wife was pregnant at the same time, and I realized that every single teammate or person I saw who chased their hoop dreams abandoned their family. It never worked out. I never saw healthy relationships. I never saw kids be able to have healthy relationships with their fathers because they prioritized their dream over the dream of that child, which was to be loved, or the dream of that partner, which was to have support. And so I made a decision that I can hang up my hoop dreams to pursue God's dream of loving on my daughter. And so I had to decide, what does it cost me? And then the last thing about, is it a God dream, is what's driving me to pursue it? Is it insecurity? Is it I'm trying to prove people wrong? Or is it really going after a word that God gave me? But today, we're in the final chapter of Genesis. Everybody say, it's it. Chapter 50. And it's interesting because we're at the end, and if you missed all those things, and you're like, well, we're at 50, but what about 44 through 50? We have a study guide that goes out every week, and you can actually find it on YouTube as well. It's attached in the details under the sermons, and you can fill in the blanks. But I needed to get out of here. It's been 7 months. I'm like, hey man, read the Bible in your own time. We at 50. But I was thinking about the fact in Genesis when Joseph, he's with his brothers, and it was a cool story. And I thought about a story in my life when I was in 8th grade, and I had my first crush. Anybody remember like the first real one? And to protect her identity, we'll call her Marissa Milan, okay? And Marissa Milan was my first crush in 8th grade, and she was like 3'9", and I was the same size I was today, but that little girl she had all my heart. And in 8th grade, you don't want to be gone. You want to see him every day. So summer actually isn't fun because that's when you can't be at school with him every day. It was a long summer. We were traveling, and so one day, I get a call from another friend of mine. We'll call her Shayla McDaniels, okay? And you're like, man, he thought out these analogies. Or I'm petty. So Shayla gives me a phone call one day because her and Marissa was best friends. And she was like, hey, so I was talking to Marissa, and I don't know if you know this, but she was hanging out at the park today at the baseball field with this boy named Davion McBride. And Davion McBride was on my basketball team for City League. And I was like, oh, what's going on? She was like, yeah, well, they were like hanging out. I was like, no, Marissa would never. She loves me. She wrote it in math class. She gave me the note, and it said, I love you. Do you love me? And had the checkbox. And I checked yes. So she would not do this to me. She would not be going on strolls at a baseball field with Davion McBride. And she was like, okay, how about this? I'll call her, and we'll do a 3-way call. Y'all remember 3-way calls? And she was like, but you can't say nothing because that's my friend, and I don't want to get in between it. I don't want to get in the middle of it. Shayla, you already in the middle. So Shayla says, just be quiet. So she calls Marissa. And I had to mute myself, but there was no button. You just had to, you know what I mean? Y'all remember that? The Gen Zers, they don't understand the struggle. So she calls Marissa. Hello? Shayla's like, hey girl, what you doing? Nothing. What'd you do today? Nothing, just went to the park. With who? With Davion. Oh! Does Justin know? Oh, no. It wasn't like that. Well, what'd y'all do? Well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just starting to really like him, and he's so sweet, and he kissed me, and oh, heck no. You did what? You did what? With big-headed Davion? What? And I'm mad. And Shayla's like, oh my gosh, I don't know how he got on the phone. And I'm like, Marissa, you gonna do this to me? I see how it is. Oh, it's all good. I got Davion. All right, wait till I get back. August 1st, it's only June 30th, but wait till I get back to school. I was ready to just take the hat off and just, like. Too soon? To Davion. But I don't know about you, you're like, what does that have to do with Jesus? Because I was thinking about Joseph. And Joseph is in a situation where all the people that did him dirty, the Marissa Milans, the Davion McBrides, they all come to him. And he's in a position to repay and handle business for what they did to him. And it made me think about each and every one of us, because I think all of you have dreams. And I don't know about you, but I used to love when I would get a package come to my house. It's like Christmas in July. You just get a random package with your name on it. It doesn't happen anymore because I'm married with 3 kids, and so all the packages go to my wife and children. But there was a time when I used to get packages. And I could know if it was a good package, because if this said fragile, handle with care, I was like, oh, this is expensive. This ain't no book from my grandma. This ain't no socks from my auntie. Like, this is something good. And I wonder how many of you guys have dreams that are fragile. And they have to be handled with care, because if you're careless with them, you could jeopardize the entire dream. If you don't care about it, you can ruin it. And I was thinking, though, how many of us are in situations where it's really hard to live out the dream God has for us? And it's not because you've been careless. It's not because you didn't appreciate it. It's because someone else mishandled you. And I wanted to end the series with this question and also an answer. And it's this: how do you handle people who mishandle you? Are you ready to grab a chair? Are you ready to sit in it and ask God, how do I respond in this situation? And I want us to leave here differently than we came. I want us to leave here learning how, in a way that honors God, how do we handle people who mishandle us? Are you guys here for it today? Okay, we're going to do some deep work. One thing I was noticing about Joseph's life is that oftentimes he had no control of the situation. Oftentimes he was put into situations he couldn't control. Like sometimes he was just 17 and naive and, talking too much. But other times he was really doing his best. And that had me thinking about a lot of you, because I believe a lot of you, you've been victims of neglect. You've been victims of mistreatment, abuse, unfairly let go of from a job, a career, derailment. There's been a lot of things that happened to you that you did not choose. And so what I want us today is I want us to be able to leave here with faith for our future, even when we can't forget what happened in our past. I was talking to my barber yesterday. That's where most of my spiritual moments happen, in the barber chair. And he was asking me, like, how's the church going? And what are we doing? I was telling him, we've been in Genesis for literally 7 months, and I'm about to end it tomorrow. And he was like, well, how do you plan out your sermons? Like, how far ahead do you go? And I was like, well, we go chapter by chapter, and so the text kind of dictates the content. And he was like, dang, y'all still in Genesis? When does Jesus show up? And I was like, well, bro, actually, Jesus has been there since the beginning. Because in Genesis 1:26, God said, let us make man in our image. And when he said us, it wasn't because he was struggling with his pronouns and he didn't know how to identify himself. He said us because he was literally talking to the Holy Spirit and Jesus, his son. And so Jesus pops up early on the scene. But he doesn't just show up in Genesis 1:26. If you haven't noticed, as we've been going through Joseph is really a foreshadow of Jesus. Like think about it. Joseph was the favorite of his father. He's a favorite son. God literally opened up heaven and said, this is my only son whom I'm well pleased. Said Jesus grew in favor with God and man. Think about this. Joseph had 11 brothers. There was 12 brothers. Jesus had how many disciples? Okay. Joseph also was sent to Egypt. Jesus spent his early life in Egypt. Okay, I'll make it more plain. Go to Genesis 37. Genesis 37, verse 26. It says this. This is right after Joseph is getting beat up by his brothers and thrown in a pit. It says, then Judah, everybody say Judah. Then Judah said to his brothers, what profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, our own flesh. Yeah, like trafficking your brother is better than killing him. Judah. And his brothers listened to him. Then Midianite traders passed by, and they drew Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver, and they took Joseph to Egypt. Now think about this. So this is Joseph being in the pit, and then we know he's going to end up in Potiphar's house, and then he's going to end up in prison. Those are 3 different dark places. 3 different places where dreams really go to die. How long did Jesus stay in a tomb? So we have 3 dark places for Joseph, 3 days in a dark, empty tomb for Jesus, a dark tomb for Jesus. Then think about this. It says Judah and the brothers sold him for 20 shekels of silver. Judah sold Joseph for 20 shekels of silver. Judas sold Jesus for 30 shekels of silver. Are you seeing the correlations? So I'm looking at Judah like, you are janky, bro. Like, that's a messed up dude. And it's actually even more messed up than that. I skipped Genesis 38. I went from 37 to 39. Or I went from 37. Yeah, I did. I went from 37 to 39 because in Genesis 38, sometimes you guys bring your kids in here, and I don't want them to know about Judah and him sleeping with his son's ex-wife, and like she was a prostitute. Like it was all sorts of negative stuff going on. So I was like, let me just skip that. It's our first year as a church. I don't want to scare everybody away, you know. But Judah was wild. But then, you know what happens? There's some prophecies about Jesus in the Old Testament, and it says he will come from the tribe of Judah. Actually, Jesus is referred to as the Lion of Judah. Out of all the brothers, like I would think it would be Jesus from the tribe of Joseph. Joseph is the victim here. And Jesus says, no, I want to partner with someone who misused others, who made a lot of mistakes and a lot of missteps. I'm going to use his life to be the legacy for my life. Let me ask you a question. Are you okay with God using people who misused you? Judah, pimp, human trafficker of his own brother, liar, forefather of Jesus Christ. I want you to write this down. If you're going to learn how to handle people who mishandled you, I have to be okay with God using people who misused me. I have to. I have to be okay with God using people who misused me. I remember when we moved out here from California to Arizona to do full-time ministry, and I was like, man, we're going to come work at a church. We're going to be surrounded by all these super spiritual people. My prayer life is going to be better. I'm going to hear God like Morgan Freeman, just clearly. You know what I mean? Because I'm no longer dealing with, supervisors who are heathens and employees who are coming to work hungover. I'm with spiritual people from 9 to 5. You know the hardest part of full-time ministry is you fully see the flaws and humanity of the people that God uses for his purpose. You talking about, he's a pastor? And he talked to me like, what, in staff meeting? She leads worship? And she don't know what sanctified is? You know the hardest part about being a Christian is that God will use people who publicly share the same faith as you, even though privately they cause you the most pain. And I have to be okay with that. I have to be okay with God using Judas when I think I'm the Joseph. I have to be okay with God using people who misuse me. So, everyone say, no Judah, no Jesus. Okay, so after Genesis 37, the brothers get rid of Joseph, but then they get desperate. They end up in Egypt where Joseph already is, and now he's the head honcho. He's him. And so this is what happens. Joseph, he loves God, but he finds a way to be a little petty. Like he does some little things to just mess with his brothers a little bit. And so they're freaking out because they think he's like full crazy. They don't know he's like controlling it. And this is what happens. Genesis 42, verse 21, it says, speaking among themselves, they said, clearly we are being punished because of what we did to Joseph long ago. We saw his anguish when he pleaded for his life, but we wouldn't listen. That's why we're in this trouble. Didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? Reuben asked, but you wouldn't listen. And now we have to answer for his blood. Of course, they didn't know that Joseph understood them, for he had been speaking to them through an interpreter. Now he turned away from them and began to weep. When he regained his composure, he spoke to them again. Then he chose Simeon from among them and had him tied up right before their eyes. Joseph then ordered his servants to fill the men's sacks with grain, but he also gave secret instructions to return each brother's payment at the top of his sack. He also gave them supplies for their journey home. So the brothers loaded their donkeys with the grain and headed for home. Joseph is adding value to the same people that tried to rob him of his. They came to buy grain. He gave them the grain and told them, keep your money. And then added more money on top of that. Write this down. I have to look for ways to pay it forward instead of looking for payback. Now, this is a hard pill to swallow because Joseph is in charge now. Like, it's no more little bro. It's like, Your Highness. Joseph has a right to get them back for what they did to him. And instead of looking for ways to pay back their evil, he actually looks for ways to sow generosity and blessing into people who really did not deserve it. Jesus describes it like this in Matthew 5. He says, God blesses those who are merciful, for they will be shown mercy. God blesses those whose hearts are pure, for they will see God. God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called the children of God. God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you to your family members and post all sorts of evil things against you on Facebook because you are my followers. Be happy about it. Be very glad. For a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted in the same way. Sheesh. Bless people who lied on me. Bless people who tried to screw me over. Bless. I get this question often. They're like, how do I know if I've forgiven someone? Like, how do I really know if I've forgiven someone? Because I'll say I forgive them, but I still get that pit in my stomach when they walk into the room. I'll say I've forgiven them, but if I see them on my social media feed, I get triggered. I say I've forgiven them, but I still get anxiety when I think I might run into them. Like, how do I know I've forgiven them? And here's my answer to that question is forgiveness is not a feeling. It's a decision. Matter of fact, I would say that forgetting or remembering are natural things that you can't control. But forgiving in faith is a supernatural decision that you can make daily. Meaning, I can see you and remember what you did to me or tried to do to me, and I can still feel that pit in my stomach, and I can make a faith decision to pray for you anyway. Now, here's, I'll give you a real life example. So recently, me and my wife, we were at an event, and we were gonna be around people who we felt had mishandled us. And my wife, you know, she's Puerto Rican. She's like, I ain't playing fake with nobody. And so I had to put on my pastor hat, which is rare. I don't really often get these opportunities with my wife, so I had to soak it in. I'm like, listen, honey, babe, hey, you're a Hamilton, and we lead first. We don't wait for people to come say hi to us. We go say hi to them. We can never go to an event and say no one spoke to us, because that would imply that we actually didn't speak to anyone else. We were just so arrogant to think that we have the right for everyone to get out of their comfort zone and come to us, because so we make a decision that every event we go to, everyone spoke to us because we spoke to everyone first. I'm giving you free life advice for some of you petty Christians in here who are always offended at every family function or every this because no one spoke to you and you're just a prideful. Okay. So I said, so here's what we're going to do. It's not fake to do something in faith. Think about how many things you do in faith on a daily basis. You came to church and you worshiped in faith. You sang a song, joy is coming in the morning. In reality, Monday is coming in the morning when you got to go to work with that boss that you hate. But you made a decision to sing the song in faith anyway, even though you don't always feel it. Think about how you parent your kids. You be looking at your baby like, boy, you is smart. You is kind. You is important. That boy dumb as bricks. He's a bully. Don't nobody want to be his friend. But you got to speak it in faith anyway, because you're a good parent. Your marriage is in faith. I love you. You're the most handsome man ever. Bruh's breath stink. He ain't been in a gym. But you speak it in faith. So why would it be any different if you forgive in faith? Where no, I don't feel it. No, you don't deserve it. Yes, I still get the pit in my stomach when I go to those events, but I'm making a decision, write this down, that my faith must lead my words, not my feelings. My faith must lead my words, not my feelings. The Bible says that death and life is in the power of the tongue. And the reason so many of us are living in dead places emotionally and spiritually is because we speak dead things out of our mouths. That deadbeat baby daddy of mine don't do. And so that's where you live. Man, she just always, and you don't know what they did. I don't need to know. Matter of fact, the Bible says that Joseph's brothers didn't understand him because he spoke through an interpreter. What if the words that you spoke to other people were so mind-boggling they couldn't even understand? They're like, why are they being nice? What if when you get a Shayla McDaniels who's telling you, well, I don't want to be in the middle, but just so you know, this is what they're saying about you out there. Because listen, people are listening to what your response is going to be for people who speak poorly about you. And so what if you did it in such a way where you spoke kindly about people who spoke poorly about you? And people are like, wait, what? They must not know. Oh, no. I know. But I'm not led by my feelings. My words are led by my faith. And I'm not fake. I'm actually mature. That's a sign of spiritual maturity, when I can be led in situations to where this isn't even what I feel like doing. This isn't even what I feel like saying. I feel like cussing you out, but because I want to be like Jesus, I'm going to, God bless them. I want to say, forgive them, help them, send them to help Jesus that they need. What am I doing? I'm speaking in faith. And guess what? I'm stacking up blessings, because I have a right to give you what you deserve, but then I would rob myself of getting what I don't deserve from God. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be so committed to holding on to what I deserve that I miss out on what's available to me through God. So I'm going to just let go of some things that I have a right to speak about. I'm not going to try to be my own lawyer. I don't need to convince everybody that I was the victim and I was wrong. I don't need to convince everybody that they should be on my side because he ain't. No. The Bible says Joseph reassured his brothers because he spoke kindly to them. I love what the theologian Michelle Obama says. She says, I wrote it down. I didn't want to mess it up. She said, when someone is cruel or acts like a bully, you don't stoop to their level. No, our motto is, when they go low, we go high. And if you can't accept truth from someone, regardless of how you vote, check your heart. Here's the next point I want you to get. Go to Genesis chapter 50 one more time. Somebody can come out here and make me sound spiritual. Genesis 50:18. Then his brothers came and threw themselves down before Joseph. Look, we are your slaves, they said. Oh, they're desperate now. Because when you've been doing stuff that they can understand, they feel guilty. Now they're going to try to go, but listen to Joseph's response. But Joseph replied, don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish me? You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position. Everybody say position. So I could save the lives of many people. No, don't be afraid. I will continue to take care of you and your children. So he reassured them by speaking kindly to them. Write this down. I have to see others from the position God has called me to and not from the place they left me in. I have to see others from the position that God has called me to and not from the place that they left me in. I remember 2019, it was a lot of newness for me and my wife. We transitioned to a new church. We had a relatively new baby daughter, and it was a lot of newness. And I was living the dream. Like I was at a church. I was overseeing multiple campuses. I had more responsibilities. My wife was in a great space. She was thriving. My kids were well taken care of. They were thriving. In 2019, I was diagnosed with clinical depression. It was the most miserable I had ever been in my life. And I couldn't understand it because I was like, I'm living the dream. I preach the gospel. My family's taken care of. I don't have to worry about things. I'm living in the safest city in America. And I'm in the darkest place I've ever been in. And it was because I was so fixated on what had happened to me, how I felt mishandled, how I felt misused, how I felt misled by Christians. And I thought Christians were the fakest people in the world, and the leaders that I was angry. And I was trying to encourage others and speak life to others, and God's got you. And I felt like God left me. I felt like God brought me to a place to suffer. And I remember I had to have a conversation with the pastors one time at the end of the year. I got there in like February. I had to have a conversation with them in December. And I was like, hey, I'm sorry. I've been miserable the whole year y'all brought me here. I've been preaching sermons that I ain't wrote no new sermons. I've been recycling stuff. I haven't felt close to God. I've just been here. Because I feel like people dropped me. And they said, we forgive you. You don't have to pay us back your salary the past 8 months that you've been wasting our time. And here's what I realized. God had brought me to a brand new position. I was in a new city, new environment, new people, new responsibilities, overseeing a lot. My wife was thriving, my kids. I was in a whole new position, physically. But my perspective was stuck in a pit, in a prison of what had happened to me. So I couldn't appreciate what was happening to me. And I think about what Joseph said. He said, you intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. Joseph is such a savage for this statement. Because he's saying, I'm not some naive 17-year-old that is just like, hey, he's like, no, I know what you intended. I see how it is. I see that you misled me. I see you, Judah. You misused me. I see you, Levi. You made a mistake with my life. I see you, Simeon. You messed up. You missed out. I see you, Reuben. You just missed me. But I also see what God was doing. And I see that if you hadn't have dropped me, God couldn't have picked me up and placed me in the position that he wanted me to be in. If you hadn't have left me in a pit, God couldn't have brought me to the position of Egypt. And here's the truth. I love what he says. You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. Like, I can see, I know you intended to damage my reputation, But God intended for my integrity to grow and for me to stay faithful and trust him through the process. Like you intended to ruin me financially, but God intended to show me that he was a way maker and a miracle worker and a promise keeper. And you intended to rob me of my dignity and my purity and the things that my Father had blessed me with, but God intended to show me that no one can take from you what they never gave to you in the first place. It was divinely given. It was divinely orchestrated. It was something that I had my hand on your life there, and I kept my hand on your life here and where. And God, so here's my question for you. Are you more focused on the intentions of others that you're missing out on the intentions of God? And because you're missing out on God's intentions, you're missing out on his blessings. Because you're still stuck blaming and being bitter and trying to pay back and trying to defend yourself. And you don't realize that you have a high priest who prays for you, who fights for you, who intended for all the things that the enemy meant for evil to work together for your good if you would trust him and follow him and make a decision that even if people try to mishandle me, my life is in the hands of God and he won't fail. And I was thinking about you this weekend. I was thinking about all the things that maybe you've gone through, all the stories that are represented in this room. And I was thinking about the fact that Joseph had how many brothers? 11 brothers. He was the 12th. 11 people that did him dirty. 11 people that mishandled him. Put the verse back up one more time, please. You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of how many people? How many? I wonder if you're letting the 11 stop you from the many that God has still assigned for you.
Thank you for joining us. If this message impacted you, please consider partnering with us financially here at Legacy. We have 3 ways to give. Text any amount to 84321. Download the Church Center app and find Legacy Church in Chandler, Arizona. Go to our website, legacyaz.church, and you'll find the Give tab in the top right corner. Here at Legacy Church, one of our values is prayer is our priority. So we want to make sure that if you have any prayer requests, please email them to prayer@legacyaz.church. Thank you for watching. Comment your favorite part of the message down below, and don't forget to share this with a friend. Now remember, this week, go out and love, live, and lead like Jesus.